as per a suggestion from one of you guys, we are going to learn about the secret Victorian language of flowers. Let us see what flowers can tell us according to the Victorian era. Shall we?
Has anyone ever given you a bouquet of roses as a gift? Most people would agree that it's quite the romantic gesture. But do we actually know why? Why are roses, of all things, associated with love and romance, when they can just as easily be used for a funeral? The answer lies in yet another Victorian tradition, whose remnants have carried over to our modern age. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Historidame, and today we're discussing the secret language of flowers.
And I know why, Canito. Yes,
floriography, or the language of flowers.
Oh, we have a very okay. I'm gonna let this go because she may actually be going one by one on this.
Has been practiced in cultures all across Europe and Asia for centuries. Assigning meaning to flowers
Silver,
is something that dates all the way back to the early editions of the Hebrew Bible.
Silver, poppy flowers. Well, okay. I'm going on the assumption that Canito may be well, maybe not, but to me, poppy flowers is representative of it's basically Veterans Day. In Canada, the poppy is a symbol of it is basically the flower symbol for Veterans Day in Canada. So once a year, when Veterans Day comes around, is the poppy used as well in the U.S.? I didn't know if it was used in the U.S. or not. I only know about it in Canada. Well, Canito, I'm trying to be more whimsical and educational in nature, not teaching people about Remembrance Day. Thank you, LaRook. Okay, my brain is a little scrambled right now, chat. I think you know why. Yes, Remembrance Day. Yes, so Remembrance Day in Canada, which is Veterans Day in the U.S. Does the in Remembrance Day in Canada, people wear a poppy to remember the veterans. Is the poppy a thing in the U.S. though? I did not realize that it was. Do they? Okay. Okay, I did not. Veterans of foreign wars. Okay, that makes sense then. That makes sense. Right, Flanders. Right, Elgman. That's there's a song. There's a poem. Flanders Field, I believe that talks about that. Okay. So yeah, the VFW, it makes sense.
And botanical symbolism has played a large role in many famous written works, including mythologies, folklore, sonnets, and the plays of ancient Greece, Rome, and Shakespeare. Though the meanings and traditions associated with certain plants have changed over time, the human fascination with assigning symbolism to flowers has persevered. Not only does floriography associate meanings with specific plants, but also in the combination and way in which they are presented. When two or more people are well versed in the language of flowers, it essentially becomes a secret code. Messages of all kinds can be conveyed through the giving and receiving of flowers, with details such as bouquet arrangement, wrapping, and even how you hold them carrying significant meaning. Although the interpretation of certain flowers has varied throughout Western culture, a select few varieties received a common meaning, such as the romantic red rose. But as the language of flowers evolved, it eventually became so complicated that entire dictionaries were needed to decipher it. The first such book was produced in 1819 by Louise Courtin-Beur under the pen name Madame Charlotte de la Tour, titled Le Langage des Fleurs, or the language of flowers in English. This book would become the Floriography Bible.
This is like, I wonder if, and maybe I'm looking a little bit too deeply into this, I'm wondering if this is going to turn into sort of like a code for spies, like during World War I or World War II, where they use the quote-unquote language of the flowers as a means of communication by spies.
During the Victorian era, there were many more rules that people had to follow in order to behave properly in society, especially for those of the
Tornado, I'm
upper
wondering.
classes. The Victorians considered themselves to be sophisticated people, so maintaining manners and courtesy in social situations was incredibly important. Rules around socializing could be very strict, even more so in the case of two members of the opposite sex. Since courting was primarily done within the home, any action in public would be met with extreme scrutiny from onlookers. Expectations for the behavior of women were also filled with many restrictions, with the social attitude of the time dictating that ladies should remain polite and demure.
Basically, chat, if I existed during the Victorian era, I'd probably be stoned to death. Because I am not exactly what one would consider a proper lady. I do remember seeing one thing about like how people are supposed to be proper, especially between the two sexes. There was the reason why talking about the weather became so stereotypical, interesting weather we're having today, is because that was like the one fucking topic that could be talked about between men and women that would not arouse the passions. That the weather was so fucking benign. It was like the one topic that could be discussed between men and women that wouldn't be construed as horny. Basically, if you were Victorian, unless you were married, it was improper to get horny. In public, that is. In private, I think there's plenty of tales. I mean, yeah, in public, this we're talking about. Let's not forget, I'm pretty sure the whole idea of the Marquis de Sade was during the Victorian era too. So let's not fuck with it. The Victorians were still horny as fuck. They just presented a very different public threat. In private, oh, they fucking. In private, they were 100% fucking like rabbits.
Because of all these rules for social interaction, many times it was difficult to express how you might truly feel. This made the language of flowers a more polite and subtle alternative to stating your feelings outright. With a growing cultural interest in botany and the need for a covert method of communication, floriography became widely popular in both England and America during the Victorian Age. Learning the meaning and symbolism of different plants and flowers was a very common pastime.
Okay.
Many Victorian homes included a dictionary for this purpose that would act as a guide for people looking to communicate without drawing too much attention to themselves. Due to the limited nature of this language, however, messages would be delivered through yes or no questions and answers, as well as the symbolism that came with specific plants. Although this practice was used by people of varying social classes, it was specifically popular with privileged women. In addition to being wealthy enough for the purchase and giving of flowers, women in the Victorian era were much more limited than their male counterparts. In a time when they were not encouraged...
I mean, this is basically when women... The Victorian era was an era when women had very few rights. They had no right to vote. I can't recall whether or not women had the right to own property. Right, Elwin, the Marquis de Sade passed away in 1814, but his stories, the stories of them, I'm talking about more about the stories of the Marquis de Sade. Because after the Marquis de Sade passed, people were writing down, like, his stories. And they were doing it in, like, little books that were covertly passed out to people. So I was referring more about to his exploits that people were basically getting turned on by. No, not in high society. In high society, women were not to be barefoot and pregnant. It was basically they were women in the Victorian era were viewed much more so as decorations. Women were basically decorations in the Victorian era. That's really it. And so they did not have a lot of rights. If a man told a woman to do something, she kind of had to do it. She really didn't have much choice. The law was on the side of the man, not the woman, so yeah, they really didn't have rights.
To be outspoken or direct with their opinions, floriography provided a method in which they could communicate with their peers, without the risk of damaging their social status.
Oh, I have no doubt, Mouse. I mean, this is back during a time when it was not done.
Flowers
It was
a
not cricket.
complicated task. Not only did you need to have a guidebook to assist you, but if you did not already have a large portion of it memorized, you would need to spend some time analyzing the details of the message. To make things even harder, not all guidebooks had the same interpretation for different plants, meaning that there could be some unintended misunderstandings. In general, a message was made up of the following elements: the species of flower given, in which hand the bouquet was offered, the condition of the flowers, and even the placement of the ribbon. For example, responding yes to a previously asked question was done with flowers handed over using the right hand. In order to deliver the answer no, the left hand was used. More confusingly, if the flowers were given upside down, then this would have the opposite meaning of what was typically meant. If the bouquet was bound with a ribbon and it was tied to the left, then the symbolism of the flowers would apply to the giver. If it was tied to the right, then it would refer to the recipient.
Holy shit!
Of course, if you were just looking to insult someone, you could simply hand them a wilted bouquet, and the message would be clear. The meaning of flowers themselves, however, was another matter entirely. Oftentimes, the connotation of a flower came from the appearance or behavior of the plant. For example, the mimosa has leaves that close at night or when touched directly. Because of this trait, it is often interpreted to mean sensitivity or chastity. Some other examples include daffodils that were known to represent unrequited love, daisies meaning innocence and purity, bluebells that were interpreted as kindness, violets symbolizing faithfulness and modesty, and crocuses referring to youth and cheer. If you wish to send a message to your nemesis, then you might consider rhododendron to signal a warning, or even—
Okay, all of this shit is this would confuse MI for God's sake. Like, the people in Intel would not be able to figure this fucking thing out. This is so complex. Forget about the wind talkers in WW2. I mean, if flowers could somehow be broadcast over radio waves, this would be the way to fuck with the Axis powers, and so they'd have no fucking clue what was going on. Yeah, I mean, that's what I wonder, like, this is so complex. It made me wonder if this art form, if it was maintained, could have been used during, like, World War I and World War II. Like, it would be the ultimate form of code talking. Because none of them would have any fucking clue what was going on.
Even the dreaded yellow carnation, which was a symbol of disdain. And of course, the rose is arguably the—
Oh, shit. Well, Xanax, that's what I'm wondering, if they did. That's what I'm curious about, if there's going to be examples of them doing so. But, chat, how many of you in high school gave your prom date a carnation? Huh? Well, Zeb, it's written down, but how well known is it? That's the question. Yeah? Didn't go to prom, never had a prom date? Okay, well, I guess you're all safe then. I guess you're safe then. None of you accidentally insulted your prom dates.
And of course, the rose is arguably the most famous flower, which has still managed to hold some of its original meaning. The giving of roses contains symbolism right down to the color. The red rose is widely known to symbolize love and desire, as well as passion. But you must be careful. A dark red rose was used to express condolences and mourning. A pink
Oh.
rose could represent happiness, while a white rose stood for purity, innocence, and new beginnings. Similar to the yellow carnation, a yellow rose was a less desirable gift, since it could refer to jealousy, the rejection of love, or infidelity. It was also seen to mean friendship, which made it the go-to flower if you wanted to reject someone.
Wait! So not only do red yellow roses indicate, rejection, warning, basically all the bad stuff, but at the same time, I just want to be friends. What the fuck? So, in other words, the language of flowers is just as confusing as the language of women themselves. So, yeah, it's basically like, this is just like talking to a woman. Yeah, the friend zone flower. Yeah.
As the years passed, however, the hype of floriography eventually did die down. While there are still some who know the language today, many of the interpretations for common flowers have changed since the height of its popularity. You can still find the language of flowers commonly used in weddings, but in terms of the widespread practice, it is nowhere near what it once was. But like many Victorian traditions, its essence lives on in our culture every time someone receives a bouquet of roses. Hey everyone, thanks for watching! For those of you who are interested in learning more about floriography, I've linked a guidebook from 1846 in the description of this video. It's full of beautiful illustrations and has hundreds of flower meanings, so you should check it out. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, you can also subscribe to my channel, and keep up to date on all the fun history videos of the future. But for now, I bid you farewell.
Very interesting, chat. So, if you really want to impress your ladies, for those of you that have ladies, time to do some research. It is time for research if you intend to astound your ladies in question.